Want to know how to better conduct prospect research for your nonprofit? It's a bird! It's a plane! No, it's a generous donor. Even superheroes need funds. Just look at Batman. I mean, the Batmobile has to cost a pretty penny. It shouldn't come as a surprise that nonprofit organizations and educational institutions on a mission to change the world rely on committed donors. While fundraisers nourish relationships with existing donors, nonprofits also need to seek out new donors. An essential part of every organization's growth strategy is finding these donors through prospect research. Recruiting and managing donors can be almost as challenging for a nonprofit as fulfilling its mission. But effective prospect research is possible no matter how limited your time and resources. I'm Noel with Jotform, and in today's video, we'll cover the various types of prospect donors, what info you should collect from new prospects, and how to conduct prospect research that yields results. Let's go. Put simply, fundraisers conduct prospect research to find potential donors or learn more about their existing donor base. The goal of this research goes beyond adding names and contact info to a marketing list. It's really about developing a better understanding of the causes prospects care about, how likely they are to donate, and how to get them to donate more. The best donor management strategies build better relationships through knowledge about prospects. Analyzing this information will help you refine the way you approach them for donations. You wouldn't ask a salaried employee for $1 million donation, and you would waste asking a millionaire for a one-time gift of $30. Prospect research helps you secure more donations and streamline the asking process by identifying the best potential donors ahead of time, as well as finding out the giving potential of your existing benefactors. Categorizing the types of potential donors you have by the amount or types of donations they might give is a major goal of prospect research. It not only helps you better understand the potential value of the relationship, but also how to prioritize it and how to solicit appropriate amounts. During your prospect research, you can sort potential donors into the following categories. First up are individual donors. Individuals are the most common type of donor, but they won't necessarily be the largest source of revenue, even as a category. There are three types of individual donors. You have the one-time donor who, as the name implies, will give to your organization only once. Maybe they attend a charity event or a fundraising campaigner approached them on the street and inspired them to give. Keeping one-time donors in your databases is important as they clearly care about your cause and are ideal candidates for future engagement and gifts. There's also the annual givers. These donors will give in conjunction with an event they like to attend, such as a holiday gala. Even though they don't give frequently, they do give regularly, and it's common for their gifts to be substantially larger than the average individual donors. A newer type of individual donor is the recurring donor. They give as if the charity were a subscription service by setting up automatic monthly debit or credit card donations. The gifts may be as small as those that one-time givers make, but when many of these small donations come in on a regular basis, it's much easier for organizations to project their revenue and budget accordingly since they can depend on these donors. Let's move from the individual donor type to another type of donor, major donors. Studies have shown that more than 88% of all donations come from just 12% of givers. These 12%ers are considered the organization's major givers, providing most of their revenue and growth funding. This category of donor is incredibly important and can also be the most challenging to foster. Major gifts can come in the form of windfall financial donations or funds for a specific project. This is how people get buildings named after them. When these donors give, they give big. They may be able to provide large sums of money on a one-time or annual basis, or commit to hands-on involvement so they can remain informed about what their money is doing. When communicating with these types of donors, you should include detailed updates as opposed to the traditional outreach that calls for more donations. An organization's leadership should personally develop relationships with major donors so that they're well taken care of and continue to give. Corporate donors are another type of donor. They're less likely to give in support of a particular cause and more often giving as a way to tie their gifts to a marketing and public relations campaign. A major gift from a corporation will probably involve a press release, an event, or some sort of co-branded effort. Corporate donors can provide the opportunity for greater exposure, which can be just as valuable, if not more so, than financial gifts, depending, of course, on the size or type of the corporation. If you're building a profile of corporate prospects, it's important to understand when their fiscal year ends, as the months leading up to that date will be when they're most likely thinking about donations. The last type of donor is foundations. Foundations establish private funds for the sole purpose of donating money to nonprofit organizations. Individuals, families, and other entities can create these tax-exempt pools of money to fund worthy causes and missions. Foundations may be required to give a specific amount annually or quarterly, depending on the laws they have to follow to remain tax-exempt. It's unlikely that you'll approach these prospects in the same way you would other donors, mainly because foundations focus on a specific area that they're most interested in supporting and offering grants to worthy organizations. The only way to secure these grants is to fill out the application and outline the potential impact the funding could have. Prospect research is necessary, but not all information is valuable. The goal is to identify new donors, determine the potential value of the relationship, and assess the best way to approach them. To get the most out of your prospect research, focus on these 8 data categories. Research shows that past giving is the biggest indicator of future giving. If a donor has given to your organization before, they're interested in your cause or institution. This could mean your message resonated with them more than the others in your field, so you're doing something right. Leverage this existing relationship by looking at how recently they made their last donation, how much they gave, and how much they've given in the past. This info will help you determine how much to ask for in the future, as well as how often. Maintaining records of past donations is important. You can thank donors for the total amount they've given and provide a recap of what their funds have helped your organization accomplish. Acknowledging past contributions is a great way to form deeper emotional connections with donors. And the best part about this type of data is that it's available for free because your organization gathers and keeps it itself. As mentioned before, past donations can predict future gifts. With that in mind, any donor who gives to a competing organization has an affinity with your cause, making them a great potential donor. However, approaching them with the right messaging is key. Finding these donors can be difficult, though, as few regulations require nonprofits to publicly disclose their donors. Even when you find this info in an annual report, you may find that the organization doesn't make it available for long. Political giving is another indicator that a donor has an interest in a particular cause. Not only that, but they're interested in using their money to make a difference. For example, if a politician campaigned on a platform centered on ending homelessness or poverty, their largest donors are also likely concerned about those issues. If your organization is involved in poverty relief efforts, that makes these political donors candidates for your prospect outreach. You can leverage their shared interests when you approach them. Best of all, this info is relatively easy to find. Federal Election Commission regulations require campaigns to report the name, occupation, address, and donation date of each donor. All of that info is available to anyone at fec.gov, making it easy to locate political donors. Foundation, nonprofit, and other institutional board members understand more than anyone how valuable giving is to the world. In fact, many board members donate their own funds to the organizations they serve. Knowing whether a prospect is involved in other nonprofit endeavors allows you to modify how you approach them, increasing your chances of them donating to your cause. High-ranking members of these organizations are also likely to refer their friends and associates as donors as well. Keep in mind, though, that these types of donors who are on the boards of organizations that directly compete with yours are unlikely to be receptive to solicitation. Fortunately, nonprofits and foundations are required to publicly disclose who sits on their board of trustees. GuideStar has made this information available for free with a search function that pulls data from every major organization. Ownership in publicly traded companies shows a person is financially savvy and interested in putting their money to use, aka a great place to look when seeking prospects. However, just because they have the resources to make a donation doesn't necessarily mean they will. Publicly traded companies report this info to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Its Edgar database allows users to research investors and the financial value of their holdings. Understanding a prospect's professional life is a way to get more insight into their financial position. If you can understand where they work and the role at their company, you can extrapolate their income and better understand their potential giving capacity. However, just as with stock holdings info, high earnings and wealth don't necessarily indicate an interest in philanthropy. Substantial real estate holdings are also an indicator of wealth and potential giving capacity. Those who are financially secure are more likely to make a donation, if not because they have a passion for a cause, then at least for the tax write-offs. Real estate ownership is one of the more challenging and time-consuming areas to research. You could start by searching Zillow, which often lists owners and property values. A local tax assessor's office could also be a good resource for finding info about wealthy property owners, since it stores a record of historical purchase prices and property values. Perhaps the most important info you want to uncover through your prospect research is personal contact info. You'll need this in order to send prospects marketing materials, solicit donations, or invite them to events. You'll want to gather each potential donor's full name, email address, phone number, mailing address, spousal information, and other identifiers that will help you build a complete donor profile. The more you know, the easier it'll be to research other areas of their lives. For example, a mailing address can provide some insight into their financial status based on property values. Many companies offer separate wealth screening services for prospect research, but this really only represents a small part of an overall strategy. Wealth screenings are important, but they're limited in providing insight on an individual's giving capacity and can't fully predict the likelihood a prospect will donate. Only conducting wealth screenings can be dangerous, as they can produce a list of potential donors who have absolutely no interest in your cause or philanthropy in general. So what should you do to create a well-rounded prospect research strategy? Whether you outsource it or do it in-house, prospect research can be time-consuming and pricey. If you lack the resources to conduct research internally, screening and consulting companies can find well-vetted prospects for you. If you do have the resources, follow these steps to conduct your in-house prospect research. The best way to guide your prospect research is to clearly understand your goal. Maybe you're hoping to reach a specific fundraising amount through major gifts, or maybe you want to fulfill a quota for new prospects in your pipeline. Whatever the goal is, focusing on it can prevent distractions. There is so much information out there, so the more concrete your goal is, the better your search criteria will be. Even the most well-funded organization won't be able to achieve anything in prospect research without a clear focus. Focus on these 4 tasks to design your research strategy. Define the goal of the research. Specify the parameters you want to focus on. Create a research timeline. And assign the relevant employees and departments. We all love a good spring cleaning, and chances are your database is in desperate need of one too. One of the most efficient ways to conduct prospect research is to go through your data on past donors and past research efforts. Ensure that the contact info is accurate, the giving history is up to date, and all interactions are properly recorded so you can make the best ask once the research is complete. Don't worry about making your data perfect. Just focus on the areas most relevant to the current prospect research project. Many CRM programs and donation management platforms are designed to help organizations keep track of donors. These tools can store prospects, then organize and streamline your fundraising efforts once it's time to reach out to them. If your prospect research project is focused on finding new potential donors, your next step is to use the publicly available info we talked about. GuideStar's database offers info on more than 1.8 million organizations. DonorSearch is a database of millions of donors and philanthropic transactions. It dives deep and provides insight on what causes the donors are interested in and how likely specific donors are to give. Political donations and SEC records about stock transactions can help, as well as social networks such as LinkedIn, which list various company stakeholders and ways to contact them. So you've completed your stellar research. Now it's time to analyze all the data you collected. You'll have a new list of prospects as well as thorough profiles on them. These profiles will include info about their previous charitable and political donations, their involvement with other nonprofits, and an estimate of their net worth or income, among a few other relevant details. Spend some time studying this data in order to fully understand which prospects are most likely to give and how much their donation might be. For example, a high net worth individual with a history of donating to charities or sitting on nonprofit boards is more likely to donate than an individual with even greater net worth but no philanthropic history. This data will be quite complex to analyze and act on. Rely on platforms like Donor Search to simplify this process by assigning prospect scores to each individual based on those same philanthropic indicators. Once you've analyzed your data, it's time to categorize it all. Now that you better understand each prospect, you'll know how to prioritize them. Would this prospect most likely respond to requests for individual donations, or do they have a history of being a recurring donor? Does the prospect have the potential to be a major donor? Are there opportunities that your organization could provide them in exchange for a major gift? Another part of categorizing prospects is determining the best way to approach them. Would they best respond to emails, event invitations, or phone calls? If this prospect already donates to a similar organization, a pamphlet educating them about the cause would be a misfire. However, material that highlights how your organization is different from others in your field could be incredibly effective. At the end of the day, you want to figure out where each of these new prospects belongs in your existing stewardship strategy and then put them in the pipeline so the solicitation process can begin. It seems like more and more financial transactions occur online these days. With that, it's imperative that your organization has convenient ways to collect funds through your website, email campaigns, and social media. Jotform offers a wide variety of online donation forms that make it easy for you to collect one-time and recurring donations from the public. These forms can integrate with over 30 payment processing services, enabling organizations to collect payments by credit and debit cards via PayPal, Square, and Stripe. Jotform also helps nonprofits by offering a 50% discount to eligible nonprofits. This way, you keep more of your donated funds. Look at you now. You're a prospect research genius. You have all the tips and tools you need for your organization to implement and capitalize on a prospect research strategy. Let's do a quick review. It's a great rule of thumb to know the different types of potential donors, which include individual donors like one-time donors, annual givers, and recurring donors. There's also major donors, corporate donors, and foundations. When conducting your prospect research, you'll want to focus on uncovering the following information from your donors. Any previous donations, donations they've given to similar organizations, political donations, board membership and philanthropic involvement, stock holdings, business affiliations, real estate holdings, and most importantly, contact information. Once your resources are in line, it's time to conduct your search. Remember to follow these steps. Take the time to create a strategy by defining your goals and creating a timeline. Clean your database so it's up to date. Collect new prospect info. Analyze your data and categorize it. I'm Noel with Jotform. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We'll see you next time.